I'm talking to Allie Taylor, the president and co-founder of the Arkansas Abortion Support Network, which is a nonprofit started in 2016 to reduce barriers to abortion access in Arkansas, and someone that Freya has partnered with in the past. Allie, can you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about AASN and why you started it, and what it does.
Sure thing. Thanks so much for having me too. This is a lot of fun, and
Yes.
also very 2020. You'll probably see my cat Stella occasionally during this recording. Yeah, so I am president and co-founder of Arkansas Abortion Support Network. Back in 2014. I was clinic escorting at Little Rock Family Planning Services. At the time, Little Rock Family Planning Services was one of 3 clinics in the state that provided abortion services. And they were the only clinic in the state that provided a procedural abortion. Some folks refer to it as surgical. We, as an organization, refer to it as procedural. There's no incisions or stitches, etc. But at any rate, that's our vernacular choice. But the other 2 clinics, one also in Little Rock and one in the northwestern part of the state, only provided medication abortion. So that was only available up to 10 weeks. And if somebody was past 10 weeks, they had to come to Little Rock. Anyway, we started clinic escorting during a 40 Days for Life campaign, which typically sponsored and organized, usually by a local Catholic diocese or sometimes just local protesters, but it is in conjunction with Lent, and then there's another one in the fall as well. But this is a special time where they bring folks out to protest basically as much of the day as possible. And the clinic director at the time would invite folks that she knew who were interested to come escort at the clinic. And while I was there escorting with my mom, actually, which was really cool to be able to do that, we met another woman who was very passionate about the cause and about escorting. And we realized, or were told, that there were protesters there year round. But the clinic director really only had the capacity to try to do any organizing for these really big campaigns. And so we thought, well, we'll just keep coming back if it's okay, and we spoke to her. I took over the scheduling for the clinic escorts, and we eventually got to the point where so much word of mouth had gone around, and we realized people were really interested and were looking for something like this. So we tabled at a annual reproductive justice rally. It's held every January to commemorate Roe v. Wade at the Arkansas State Capitol. And we tabled at that event in 2015, and we held our first formal classroom training for new volunteers in 2015, and we established Arkansas Clinic Escorts, or ACE. And after escorting pretty heavily for about another year or so, we realized that there was a need for an abortion fund in Arkansas. There weren't any abortion funds. The only help people were able to get were either if they went to one of the Planned Parenthoods that provided medication abortion, whatever type of funding assistance Planned Parenthood could offer, or they could get assistance through National Abortion Federation, which is obviously a national organization that works with clinics all over the country to help fund people who are not able to cover the full cost of their abortion. But at times those resources were still coming up a little short. And we were, at the time, in 2016, Arkansas was one of 11 states that did not have an abortion fund, and we decided to change that. So we basically just kind of dove headlong. We got into touch with National Network of Abortion Funds. At the time, they weren't taking on any new members, but they gave us a lot of resources for how to start. And we did. We established a 501c3, held our first sort of coming out party and fundraiser in the summer of 2016. And we funded our first patient, I believe it was in June or July. of 2016, and we've just been going since then. And the Arkansas Abortion Support Network encompasses 3 arms. Of course, the original, the flagship arm is Arkansas Clinic Escorts, and we call our abortion fund Abortion Services of Arkansas, and the acronym for that is ASA, which also just happens to be the first name of Arkansas's governor. And that wasn't on purpose at all. He is a very anti-abortion Republican governor. So ASA is our abortion fund.
I love that.
And our third arm is Community Outreach and Education, CO. So that's basically the arm where we hold our events and do any sort of outreach and messaging and things like that.
What can you tell us, like, what it's like to try and have an abortion in Arkansas?
Well, it's not super easy. It's not new anymore. Time has no meaning really right now.
We'll get into that.
Yeah, right. So we, for, I want to say 2 or 3 years, I could be wrong about that as well, but for a few years, we had a 48-hour waiting period. However, now we have a 72-hour waiting period, and that for one clinic, the one procedural clinic, and actually we are down the third clinic, the clinic in Northwest Arkansas, had to close a while ago, and it's not definite that they're not going to be able to open anything again, but thus far, so it's not considered permanent quite yet, but at any rate, we do just still have the 2 clinics now in Little Rock, and so regardless of whether you have chosen the abortion pill or the procedural method, you have a 72-hour waiting period. You must go to the clinic in person and speak with doctor who provides you a state script that has all kinds of misinformation in it, of course. I think one of the most egregious of which is information on abortion reversal for people who are taking the abortion pill. And that is completely unfounded. There's no real science to back up. For those who may not be familiar, abortion reversal involves it's only only available, if you will, for someone who's chosen to take the abortion medication method. So there are 2 courses of pills for that method. The first pill stops the pregnancy hormones and basically ending the active pregnancy. And then the second course of medication prompts uterine contractions so that everything is contracted out of the body and completes the abortion. So there's a theory that if you do not take the second course of medication, and if the pregnant person receives a shot of progesterone, I believe it is, within a certain amount of time after taking that first pill, that it will stop the effects of the pill and allow the pregnancy to continue. Again, totally unproven. There are no reliable no peer-reviewed studies to prove this, but the Arkansas State Legislature makes our doctor tell everybody that it's true. And I kid you not, I believe because the doctor, if people asked about it, none of the providers are going to say, oh, sure, They're going to say, look, I can't give you information about this because it's not a medical thing. It's something I'm required to tell you. And I'm sure that there were probably some also snarky comments about, well, contact your legislature or what have you. So that was actually, the script was updated to suggest that the patient, if they had questions about abortion reversal, they should Google it.
Wow.
State script about a medical issue. So if that tells you much about everything you need to know actually about the Arkansas State Legislature. And right now, in particular, because of COVID, a new state requirement is that for procedural abortion, the patient must test negative for COVID. I want to say it's 48 hours before the procedure. And I mean, back when this first happened, I mean, just think of all the people who had trouble getting tests, who were actually concerned
Right.
that they might have been exposed and needed the test and
Right.
couldn't get one, or never, it was weeks to get a result, and by then didn't matter. So, for the clinic, oh man, I mean, they will always bend over backwards to do anything they can to help their patients. But they called and called and called and called and called around to any doctor's office they thought might be giving COVID tests, and they were finally able to find a doctor who was willing and able to help. And even that, just patient load.
Yeah. When COVID became such a huge issue in the medical community, what did that do to you guys, and how did that change your work, both in the spring and right now? I know that I think the clinic was closed for a certain time. Is that correct?
Yeah, there was kind of this, I don't know, waterfall, I guess. First, it was just even concerns over PPE, just like every other medical facility had. And then it was interesting for, the timeline is, of course, a little off, I'm sure, in my head, but for the first, gosh, I would say at least month, give or take, into kind of everybody having acknowledged how serious the pandemic was. Arkansas never had a blanket formal shutdown. Certain businesses, restaurants, gyms, et cetera, those were ordered shut down. And there was certainly strong encouragement for people who could work from home to do so. Things like that. But there was never, I think we were one of 3 states that never had like an official shutdown.
So did that help you?
Nope.
No.
Well, you know what? Initially, I really feel like it was several weeks, if not about a month. There had been a blanket general restriction on elective procedures.
Okay.
But with the little asterisk or the star or what, the little caveat that if a doctor felt that, it was, if a condition would worsen without a medical procedure that might technically be elective right now, but things are going to get a lot worse if you don't have the procedure, or just if the doctor determined that it was necessary, that any, medical procedures generally could proceed. And of course, the clinic was, well, yes, these are necessary procedures, and obviously the condition will proceed without the necessary medical intervention. So, they've just been going along, not, as normal. It's not quite the right way to put it, but, as normal as possible at the very beginning. And the governor was asked about it almost, maybe not every day at the press conferences. There were daily press conferences, but he was asked about it multiple times, and basically just kept saying, we've put out the guidelines, and, we're allowing doctors to make those decisions based on the needs of their patients.
Does it really change things, for you? And like, so what's the situation, for women in America, but specifically for women in Arkansas in terms of their access to abortion? Does the future change with, Biden, and what is that impact?
I would say that if things go the way I expect them to go for the next 4 years, which for at least 2 years, well, we don't know yet if we're going to have divide. We don't know yet exactly what's going to happen with the Senate. Yeah. If we wind up with a Republican Senate, I think we can all guess that not much is going to get done for 2 years. So I'm guessing that, not really, I don't see the Biden presidency changing a lot, or if anything, specifically for abortion access in Arkansas. I suppose there's a sliver of hope that if the Senate does go Democratic, or if that happens in another 2 years, which who knows, if it does, I feel like I've heard scuttlebutt. I haven't actually read it, but apparently Biden would repeal the Hyde Amendment, which would.
Why don't you tell, and just kind of tell us about it a little bit, because not everyone is as familiar.
So the Hyde Amendment is a restriction on covering abortion under, and you're gonna have to help me on this one. And I can't believe I can't, Medicaid, Medicare. I always get them mixed up. It's the one for non-elderly people, but basically, it covers pregnancy and usually children and things like that. So yeah, the Hyde Amendment is a restriction on covering abortion. So basically it prevents low-income women and pregnant people from accessing abortion or from accessing it easily. And it is, interestingly, it was never passed by Congress to be permanent. It has to be reauthorized every single year. And with the budget. So even, which tells you something, that even when all the chambers are Democratic, it still gets approved, because that's happened a few times. This was introduced, I believe, in 1976 by Henry Hyde, who said something to the effect of, well, I can't prevent all women from getting abortions, but at least I can prevent low-income women from getting abortions with this. Anyway. So that's what the Hyde Amendment is. Supposedly Biden has said that he would repeal it. Or not sign it. Not sign it. Thank you. Not let it go through. When it comes up for reappropriation.
Right.
And that would, and I'm sure that there would be all kinds of, I don't know, challenges to that. But if that did happen, that would certainly be very helpful for pregnant people needing abortions in Arkansas, if they could have it covered. And then we would be able to focus on the people who fall into that gap where, they don't have insurance, but they also
don't qualify for
pocket, and they don't qualify for other
Medicaid.
Other than that, I genuinely don't see a Biden presidency changing much for the state of Arkansas. Arkansas does have what's known as a trigger law, which basically says, if the Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade, then just bam, instantly abortion becomes illegal in Arkansas. And something too, I don't know, folks who are watching this may already be aware, but I do meet a lot of people who just, well, they don't think about abortion and abortion stuff all day, every day like I do. So it's understandable that a lot of people don't, I think, fully know exactly how Roe v. Wade works. But basically, it was a decision that said that states cannot outlaw abortion up to a certain point, and then past a certain point, they can regulate it, and then past a certain point, they can ban it. And that, so basically it just says you can't ban it as a state. So if Roe v. Wade is overturned, it doesn't mean that abortion becomes illegal in the entire country.
Exactly.
It just means that states can decide. And I believe it's actually a disturbingly high number of states that have these trigger laws, kind of like Arkansas. And so, abortion would become very accessible very quickly if Roe was overturned.
Which is the fear of having Amy on the Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court actually doesn't even have to touch Roe to put us back in a pre-Roe like environment, because all they have to do is uphold one ridiculous restriction.
Right.
States will do everything they can, and states will just legislate it out of accessibility. And Arkansas would do that.
Yes, they need any precedent whatsoever.
In preparation for a potential worst case scenario, whether Roe gets overturned or whether they just uphold the stupid regulations that allow the states to close clinics down, while the legality and all the technical aspects of access won't change for anybody in a blue state, actual access might start to get a little harder because people from other states are going to be flooding those clinics as well. And, I'm sure that are working on, backup strategies for that, for that potentiality. But, that's the thing I think people don't realize or don't kind of think about. And I'm not sure but okay, sure, your technical legal standing hasn't changed, but people in blue states actually might be impacted by these laws roundaboutly. But I would say regarding that, since, we are planning obviously to help people get to those states if needed,
Mm-hmm.
something that folks in those states can do is start loosely organizing housing. Folks who are willing to put people up for a night or two, maybe folks who are willing to be part of a. I'm sorry, this always gets me choked up because I
No,
really
I mean,
kind of
I
with
didn't even think
rage.
of that, but that's a great idea, because that's like, not everyone has money to send, but like everyone's got a couch, and like that's a really
Yeah.
smart network just to start planning.
Yeah, it's important for loose individuals who are concerned about this to be thinking about what they can do, but I encourage folks to make sure that they know what organizations are in their own state who might have
Mm-hmm.
connections to organizations in other states, and be aware of what organizations are in these this southern belt where we could have an abortion desert in a matter of years. I would strongly recommend visiting the website for National Network of Abortion Funds, because that's a big, huge list of abortion funds in every state where they exist. And that's a really good place to start. If you think, if you've kind of been inspired by this, shoot us an email,
Mm-hmm.
contact@arabortionsupport.org. And we'll certainly start. I think one of the things we need to start doing is probably compiling a list, of folks who are willing to help out, or just keep hanging on to contact information.
What are you doing to kind of stay sane right now during this time, both like personally, professionally, with the support network, politically, when it feels like nothing matters? What are some, like, during the pandemic, what are things you're doing to stay sane?
Gosh, that's a really good question. I had heard about this for years and years, and this is actually something that a lot of our volunteers do for stress relief. But coloring. I got some coloring books and some coloring pencils, and it's funny. At one point, I remember thinking, and this was pretty early on
Mm-hmm.
at that, but I thought, I need something that's a little bit creative, kind of a creative outlet, but there's no stress on me about whether or not it looks good or comes out right.
Yeah.
And I thought, coloring books with stuff that I know already looks cool, and I'm just adding color and having fun with those decisions. But so adult coloring.
Anything you feel like that you haven't shared about your organization, or what's kind of going on right now with abortion access, that you really want people to think about or be aware of?
I think probably one of the biggest things now that we have a super majority, super conservative on the Supreme Court. It's I know a lot of people for a very long time were like, oh, Roe is fine, don't worry about it. And there's a decent chance that that's still true, but I just encourage you, if this is an issue that you're concerned with, that you want to keep up with, I'm trying to think of some good outlets if you're not familiar, but you can even Google probably abortion news. I think it's important to just keep up on what's happening at the state level, because that's where everything is going to start. And that's where the cases are going to come from that go to the Supreme Court. I mean, shoot, there's a couple that are waiting to go there right now. But I encourage people to keep up with news beyond the national level for abortion rights and access. And I really want to share some appreciation for our volunteers. Our volunteers are some of the most wonderful people in the world, and we have not a lot of folks have been willing to come back to escorting just yet, and that's understandable.
Right.
But the few who have been willing to come back have just been working their rear ends off. And, I think we've even had a couple people doing double shifts because we have 3 different shifts on Saturdays for escorting. But I want to say that they are just amazing. And if you are in a red state or maybe a more conservative area, I encourage you to look around, check your area, see if there's an abortion fund or maybe a clinic escorting group. If you're feeling kind of alone. So we actually just had an online training class for new volunteers. And one of the things we talk about at the end is sort of, what's in it for you as far as being a volunteer. And one of the things we always talk about is, as here in Arkansas, like we all found our people by coming into this work.
Right.
We found some amazing friends. And so I think, if you're in a red state and you're feeling alone, do some Google and see if there's a fund. You don't even necessarily have to volunteer with them, although you should. But just let them know you support them, and maybe if they have any online events coming up that you can join. And get to know people and know that you're not alone.
Right. We are going to post links with information about you, Allie Taylor, and the Arkansas Abortion Support Network. And you could be able to find that online. And we hope that you join us for our next conversation. Thank you. Thank you, Allie.
So much. Thank
so
you.
fun.
It was wonderful.